Hello everyone. I am Akshita Chavda, a pre-final year undergrad majoring in computer science. In this video, I'll be introducing you to the basics of HTML. HTML is the foundational language and is used to create and structure content on the World Wide Web. So let's dive into its core concepts and syntax. So this is what we'll be covering in this video. Firstly, we'll have a quick introduction to web development and understand the client-server model. Next, we'll dissect the fundamental building blocks, looking at the basic structure and syntax, and clarify the difference between tags, elements, and attributes. Finally, we'll see some practical applications by learning how to use lists, links, and key layout elements like media and divs. So, let's get started. To really understand web development, we must first understand how the web works. Every single time you visit a website, a rapid conversation happens between your device and a remote computer. It's a three-part process, including the client, the internet, and the server. The client could be your laptop, phone, or tablet, basically the end user device requesting information or services. The internet, or you could call the middleman, is the massive global network connecting the client and the server. Lastly, the server. It is a central powerful computer that stores and provides data and resources needed for the website. Now let's visualize the digital dialogue. The client, that is the web browser, like Chrome or Safari, acts as the requester asking for a specific website. The request made by the client is a digital inquiry that travels across the entire internet infrastructure to find the correct destination. Then this request is processed by the server, which is a powerful, always on computer that stores the website's files. The server then sends the website's code back to the client. This is known as the response. The browser receives this code, interprets it, and displays the visual page you see on your screen. Now let's see what is a web page and a web browser. To develop for the web, we must understand the correlationship between the code and the browser. Think of it like a recipe versus the meal. Starting with web pages. At its heart, a web page is just a text document which is written in HTML and stored on a server. The raw code which you see here with tags like H1 and P provides the structure and content, but it's waiting to be interpreted. On the other hand, we have the web browser, whose job is to translate those technical tags into visual elements you interact with. For example, it turns the P tags into readable paragraphs and the IMG tags into pictures. So it's valid to say that the browser takes the recipe and prepares the final meal. Web development is commonly divided into two distinct areas. A great way to think about it is using the iceberg analogy. What you see above the water is only a small part of the whole. The front end is the client side visible part, that is the above water part of the iceberg. All the elements that the user sees and interacts with, like the buttons, layouts, animations, and fonts, come under front end. It's built primarily using HTML for structure, CSS for the style, and JavaScript for the interactivity. Think of this as the elegant dining room where all the customers sit and eat in a restaurant. The backend is the hidden part, the massive structure underwater. It is the logic behind the scenes, databases, user accounts, security, and the server's operational logic. It processes the data and ensures the front end has all the necessary information it needs to display. This is the busy kitchen where the food is prepared, organized, and stored. Now that we have a clear understanding of the digital dialogue between the client and the server and how web pages are requested and rendered, let's zoom in on the fundamental structure of a web page, HTML. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It was originally developed by Tim Berners-Lee, a British computer scientist, in 1991. It's not a programming language, Rather, it's a markup language that is capable of creating the structure of web pages. It's like the skeleton of a body, it holds the structure of the entire entity. Now let's look at the absolute minimum code required to build a single web page. This is your foundation, your required starting point, which we call the boilerplate. This is the very first line, that is doc type HTML. This isn't technically an HTML tag, rather, it's a declaration. Think of it as a mandatory greeting card you send to the browser, simply telling it, hey, I am an HTML document, the modern standard. It's a non negotiable and must be the first thing in the file. Next, we have the root element, which is this HTML. It contains everything else. Notice we often add an attribute here like language and lang equals en. It is to tell the search engines and accessibility tools what language the page is written in. The head section is the brain containing the metadata. Metadata is data about the data. It's the information that the browser needs, but the human user does not see on the screen. The most common thing you see here is the title tag, which sets the text that appears in your browser tab. Like this one. This says my first page. We also define the character set here, often as UTF-8, which is essential to correctly display every character from a standard letter A to an emoji or a character from another language. Finally, the body tag. This is where the magic happens. Everything the user sees, interacts with, or reads, all your text, images, buttons, and layouts goes inside the body. If it's not in the body, it won't be displayed. This slide clarifies the fundamental vocabulary we use when talking about code. A tag is the keyword in angle brackets, like H1. An element is the complete package, the opening tag, the content, and the closing tag. The entire sentence P hello world and closing tag P is one paragraph element. When you hear developers talking about elements, they are referring to the whole piece of content and its structure. The closing tag, like this, is marked by the crucial forward slash. Missing that slash is one of the most common mistakes beginners make, and it can cause your entire page to break or display content incorrectly because the browser doesn't know where one element ends and the next begins. Self-closing tags, often called as void elements. These are elements that cannot contain content, so they don't need a closing tag. The best example is the image tag, img. You don't wrap text or other elements inside an image. The tag simply points to an external file. The line break tag, br, is another common example. Next, we see attributes. Attributes are modifiers that provide more details about an element. They are always specified in the start tag of an element and are written as name equals value. Note that the value is always enclosed in double quotes. Let's take a simple example of an anchor element. The anchor element, with its href attribute or hypertext reference, creates a hyperlink to web pages, files, email addresses, or locations in the same page or anything else a URL can address. These are some other examples of attributes. The class attribute in HTML is a global attribute used to assign one or more class names to an HTML element. These class names serve as identifiers that can be used by CSS and JavaScript to apply styles or manipulate the element's behavior. The ID attribute in HTML specifies a unique identifier for an HTML element within the entire document. This means that no two elements on a single web page can have the same ID value. The src attribute specifies the URL of the media file to play. This attribute is required when source is used in audio and video. Now let's move to how the text content is organized in HTML. Headings and paragraphs are where structure truly begins. Headings H1 through H6 are more than just large, bold text. They define a document's semantic structure. H1 is the main title of your page, like the title of a book chapter, and you should only have one H1 per page. H2 covers major sections and H3 covers subsections. Now here's something you must take care of. Don't jump directly from an H1 to an H3. Browsers, search engines, and especially screen readers expect this logical hierarchy. If you need a smaller heading, use the correct tag and then change its size later using CSS. Structure first, style later. The paragraph tag or P is the standard block container for text. By default, browsers add a little vertical space before and after a paragraph, ensuring readability. HTML also gives us tools to emphasize text and control basic formatting within a paragraph. Here is an example code which uses the strong, EM, and HR tag. This is how the result's gonna look. Now, in semantic formatting, we have two pairs of tags that often look identical in a browser but have different semantic meanings. First is strong versus B. Both make text bold, but strong indicates a strong importance, like a warning, while B is used merely to draw visual attention without special meaning. Always prefer strong when emphasizing a key phrase. Another is EM versus I. Both make the text italic, but EM indicates emphasis, as in a tone of voice, while I is used for things like scientific names or foreign phrases. Then we have the spacing tags, like BR used for line break and HR used for horizontal rule. These are your primary spacing tools. It's important to know that you should avoid using multiple BR tags just to create a vertical spacing. That's the job of CSS padding and margins. Use BR only when you genuinely need to break a line of text, such as an address or a poem. Next, we have lists. These are a crucial part of structuring information, allowing you to group related items. HTML provides two main types, ordered and unordered. The unordered list is used when the order of items does not matter. For example, a shopping list. It doesn't matter if you buy the milk before the eggs or bread after the milk. These display as bullet points by default, like this. The ordered list is used when the sequence is important. A set of instructions, a recipe, or a top 10 countdown must use an ordered list. These display as numbered items by default, like this. Crucially, both list types require the list item tag for every single time inside the container. The list item tag is li, like this. Up until now, we have mostly looked at static text, but the real power of the web lies in the edge of HTML, that is, the hypertext. Hypertext simply refers to the ability to link separate documents together. This is what transforms a single page into a connected web. First, let's look at links. To create a link, we use the A tag, which stands for anchor. But an anchor tag doesn't do anything on its own. It needs to know where to go. That is why we use href attribute. This stands for hypertext reference. It defines the destination URL. Look at this example. This tells the browser when the user clicks visit OpenAI, take them immediately to that web address. Next, let's bring the page to life with images. To display a picture, we use the img tag. There are two things to note here. First, unlike the paragraph or heading tags, the image tag is self-closing. It doesn't wrap around content, it is the content. so it doesn't need a closing tag. Second, it requires an src attribute or source. This tells the browser the file name or URL of the image you want to show, like cat.jpg. Finally, and most importantly, accessibility. You'll notice the image tag also has an alt attribute, which stands for alternative text. Never skip this. The alt text describes the image, in this case, a cute kitten. This is crucial for accessibility. If a visually impaired user accesses your site using a screen reader, the device will read this text out loud so they understand what is on the screen. It also acts as a backup label if the image file fails to load for any reason. Our final core element is the division tag or div. This is the gateway to professional web design. Div is the most generic, non-semantic element in HTML. It's the best way to manage complexity. Div is a block level element which always starts on a new line and takes up the full width available to them, regardless of their content size. This block level behavior is the key concept behind modern CSS layout systems like Flexbox and Grid, which rely on having these full width containers to arrange and position content on the screen. It does nothing visually, but its purpose is to act as a container or a grouping mechanism. In a modern day layout, you don't just want to style a single paragraph. You may want to style a whole section, maybe a photo, a headline, and two paragraphs, as a card with a border and a shadow. You wrap all those elements in a single div and then apply the border and shadow to it. With this, we move to the end of this video. We have covered all the major topics of HTML and have gone from understanding the web's core communication to mastering the building blocks of every page. Our next step is mastering CSS to bring style, color, and responsive design to your structure. Thank you for watching.